I bought $2,000 worth of rare chess books. I have one rare book that is not even on the online market. It is so valuable and so rare, you don't see it anywhere. The last time it went for sale, it sold for $225, which is, we don't even know the value it's at right now. Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. I'm the Chess Nerd, and today I'm gonna show you the 50 plus books, rare chess books that I bought recently from a man who has a private collection and he's selling some of them off. So let's start with the real life thing. So this is me on the morning of going to get the books. I kind of woke up early. You're seeing that I dressed up kind of like trash. Didn't have the time to dress up. Then we go for the car ride, kind of through one of the nicer neighborhoods in Montreal, like top 2 nicest neighborhoods. There's no footage of the beautiful houses that I went through, but you can see from my window it's quite nice streets and stuff. And like once I get to his house, I go to this library, and let me just tell you, this man had over 2,000 chess books. I don't even think he knows how many chess books he has. It was insane. Look at all the books there. Try to calculate the shelf and the dimension. It's just like so madness. Anyways, so, you know, I'm filming that, and it was a really cool place to be. I had never seen a collection that large in my life. It was just crazy, rare book after rare book, out of print after out of print. It was madness. I ended up trying to buy as least as I could. They were for good prices. They were not for dirt cheap, but they were for good prices. He even had a signed poster of the 1979 Tournament of the Stars, which hosted Michael Tal, Bent Larsen, Boris Spassky, Karpov, some legend after legend in this tournament in Montreal. Probably the best tournament we've ever hosted here in the city. Look at all those signatures. He also explained to me which ones are which is so cool. He was actually a volunteer at that tournament, which is why he had the poster and he got all those signatures. It's so cool. After 4 hours of being there, finally I decided on 54 books to buy. The oldest being from 1942 and the newest from 2016. We're gonna go through what every single book is about and what they're worth on the online market. I got 11 books about players, 15 autobiographies of just games, is so fire. 7 tournament books, which is crazy, like, oh my god, the tournaments was fire. 4 historical books and anecdotal books, 4 games collection books, 13 self-improvement books, so I'm gonna use for my own self, for my self-improvement and not for my knowledge of the game, for a total of 54 rare chess books. I am back inside where my chess books are. Never leave a chess book outside. And so here I'm gonna be talking about category through category, all of the books that I have. First category is gonna be autobiographies. So usually an autobiography in chess is when an author or a famous chess player talks about their own games throughout their careers. So usually in My Memorable Games by Bobby Fischer, or My Selected Games, My Best Games, all of these are autobiographies. So our first category is going to be autobiographical games from 4 different sections that I have compiled here. We have like 15 books here. So the first section is going to be 1900 to 1950, the players that lived in that time, that played in that time. Then it's going to be 1950 to 1960, 1960 to 1970, and then 1970 to 1980. We don't have any more players that are past 1980. So it's fairly historical chess players, which is my bread and butter. If you know me, I love historical chess players, all about them. And so let's start it off. So our first book is like kind of a dual book. We have Alyokin's My Best Games, Part 1 and Part 2. So Part 1 is 1908 to 1923 games. This is written by him, which is so cool. Imagine a world chess champion, the 4th, right? Writes about his own best chess games. It's like the best book ever that you can possibly buy. And then Part 2 is 1924 to 1937. And yeah, I love the diagrams inside. They're so old. So this one is a reprint in 1948, and this one is 73, so a bit older. But they're quite original. They've kept the original notation. It's super fire. Great books. I'm gonna be looking forward to discovering all about Alexander Alyokin. Very attacking player. Super known for his style. A riveting style in the 1930s and 40s, which made him world champion until he died in 1946. Our next book is Frank J. Marshall's Best Games of Chess, Dover edition. This was originally published in 1942. This is the reprint in 1960. It's still, again, mint with all his games. Frank J. Marshall, also a very attacking player. I guess you're knowing my style by now. Very, very good player who invented a lot of openings and some gambits as well. Super, super cool. I'm gonna be loving this book. This is probably my top 10 of the entire 54 books that I bought. Frank J. Marshall's Best Games of Chess. So fire. On the inside, there are so many rare pictures of super good players at the time. Capablanca, you see some Alyokin, you see some Lasker there. Super, super cool. You also see Frank J. Marshall and his family. Frank J. Marshall was a US champion for like 5 years. He was definitely world class, top 10 in the 1910s and the 1900s. Super, super strong player and really known overall for his style, right? The last book from 1900 to 1950 is Mr. Tartakower's My Best Games of Chess. Tartakower was a Polish dude who immigrated to France, and then he took on the name Xavier Tartakower, which he then made books in originally French, so he actually wrote in French. So this is actually a translated copy from French, which is quite crazy. And you know, there's just so many historic tournaments from the late 1910s to the 1920s in which he dominated this sphere of the world. He was like top 5, top 10 of the world as well. Super cool player. He also invented the orangutan opening, which is 1b4, super memeable. And so yeah, that's the first section, 1900 to 1950. Second section, here we are. 6 books, perhaps my favorite era of chess. So a little fun fact about the Chess Nerd, I actually started this entire brand on Instagram 4.5 years ago, January 2nd, 2018. Why? Because I wanted to start the Zurich International Chess Tournament, 1953. It's a really, really famous chess book. Let me go get it. This one in which 14 of the 15 world's best competed in a tournament. This never happens nowadays, which is why it's one of the strongest and definitely the most famous candidates tournament ever. And so I started off this, and many of the players that I bought books from, that are autobiographies, are from this tournament. So all the players you'll see here were in this tournament, were world class during the 50s, and all dominated the 50s in their own regard. So the first book is somebody who rarely wrote about chess, Mr. Svetozar Grigoric from Serbia. He was, you know, Serbian champion for so many years, also was in Zurich 1953, and I play against pieces. It's sorted by opening, which is super, super cool. I really, really love this book. I think it's going to be really cool, him annotating about his style. It's always amazing having a world-class player talk about his own games. It just doesn't get better than that, right? Annotated with his own ideas, by opening, what systems he likes, etc., etc. Learn to play like your idols. Number 2 is Mr. David Bronstein, arguably one of the best chess players to never become world chess champion. David Bronstein was not only in Zurich 1953, but he also wrote this book. This book is very old, as you can see. It's been used for 4 years, so he wrote this book, he authored this book, and now I bought this book of his, 200 open games. Some of them are annotated, some of them are not. No, they're all annotated. Yeah, so it's really just fire. It's really just incredibly fire. He annotates his own games, and the Soviets poured a lot of money into their players writing a lot, so you know this was made with quality. Number 3 from this category, super fire, dust jacket and hardcover as well. Dust jacket is just like this, you know, silky part. It makes the book worth more. I don't know if I value it that much, but it's cool. Vasily Smyslov, also in the Zurich 1953. Spoiler alert, he did win the tournament. And this is My Best Games of Chess. Again, an autobiography. It's like just the best thing ever. Like, how can you not buy this for like 10 bucks? The best thing ever. And this was The Middle Years of Chess by Paul Kierez, also in 1953. This is edited and translated by Harry Golombek. I have a lot of Harry Golombek books because I love his writing style. British champion for like 5 years. He was a really good author in chess too. So I love his translations. This was, of course, translated from Russian, which is most of these Soviet works were translated. The Smyslov, the Bronstein, all translated from Russian. 9th book overall and 5th of the 50s. Here we go. Mark Taimanov, also in Zurich 53. This is Selected Games. This is just really cool annotated games. It's a pretty thin book, as you can see. But yeah, it's sorted by theme as well. Counterattack, King's Indian motifs. You always want the books of your idols. This is why these books were so easy to purchase, because they're my idols. Like, this is how I learned chess from 4 years ago, is this style and this boom of chess in Soviet chess in the 50s, just this style of, we're just inventing a bunch of openings. And yeah, we also have Laszlo Sabo. This book is a bit kind of dirty on the cover. Also was like $10. He was also in Zurich 1953. And yeah, this is a hardcover, really cool. Laszlo Sabo was basically Hungarian chess for 20 years, from 1950 to 1970. He made like 5 or 6 candidates tournaments. Total legend, total legend. So there you go. Those are the 6 books from the 50s. Now, from the 60s to 70s, our third section in this category of autobiographies, here we have 3 books. Number 1 is Selected Games by Mr. Mikhail Botvinnik. He was world champion like 4 times, on and off and on and off, for a total of like 9 years. Like, world-class player, dominated the 60s, really, and 50s too, and some of the 40s. So this guy was like best of the best. Selected Games, super fun autobiographical book. Next is the original Life and Games of Michael Tal. This one still makes me smile every time I see it. In case you don't know, there's a very famous copy that's updated. Let me go get it. So this one I already had, super recently published, right? It's the 3rd or 4th edition of this first edition translated in English. First edition in English. Look at that cover, look at that font, so cool. And yeah, it's just like, he writes about his games. It's like the best thing ever. So yeah, here we go, that's Michael Tal. And then we have Bent Larsen. Bent Larsen didn't write a lot in English, and the writing that he did in English was apparently so good. You'll see that my most valuable book that I bought is of his, published in 1982. It's actually not found on the online market. It's really crazy. So yeah, this is his own games from 1948 to 1969. Bent Larsen, who famously lost to Fischer 6-0, I believe. He was a really creative and outside-the-box thinker. He played really unheard of openings and unpopular variations, which drove him to some really good success despite that niche. And now for our final section of autobiographies, we have 70s to 80s, which kicks off with Victor Korchnой's My Best Games. Look at this, annotated by Victor Korchnoj. Known for being a bit of a character, super aggressive on and off the board. So many stories of him going crazy, but, you know, his own annotations about his games, crazy. He was a 2 times candidate, I believe, for World Chess Championship. So crazy player. And our last book of autobiographies is a really cool book, probably the best cover of any one I have. My Best Games by Anatoly Karpov. Look at that cover, look at this super cool book. Written by him, it's an edition Ohms, it's super cool book. Actually, quite recently published. Anatoly Karpov was known as being a very solid player, and this is what drove him to be World Chess Champion for 10 years from 1975 to 1985. He was known as one of the greatest Soviet chess players of all time. He's still alive today, fun fact. And yeah, this book is actually recently published, 2007, so it's engine checked, which is super cool, and what makes recent books about old players more valuable. That is it for autobiographies, perhaps my favorite section because it's just so good. Next up, let's do the tournament books I bought. This is my favorite section. This is like the best, some of the best tournaments ever played. Just wait and see, it's just so fire. So I got 7 tournament books ranging from 1909 to 1979, so that's a span of 70 years. It goes from World Chess Championships all the way to candidates tournaments. Really just 2 types of tournaments are here. They were the best in the world at those times, except for Soviet Championships were really good. So we're gonna go earliest to latest. The number 1 tournament book, fire. 1909 St. Petersburg, a classic, an absolute classic, and not only the tournament, but it's the one edited by Emanuel Lasker, who participated in this tournament and was the 2nd World Chess Champion, so good notes for the time. So this is an absolute beautiful book. It's a reprint, but it still has the original contents. That's what matters, that's what I love. This tournament is absolutely fire, one of the best of all time, some say. Number 2 is, we go up like 30, 40 years. the World Chess Championship 1948. This is when we had to find a replacement for Aliokin, who died in 1946, and there was no World Chess Champion for 1 full year. This is that tournament that acted as a candidates tournament and a World Chess Championship all in one, with like 6 competitors playing for the World Chess Championship title. Crazy, crazy tournament book. Really historical. So fire. Then we have so fire. Oh my god. Like literally, I was talking about this like maybe 2 minutes ago. We got its twin sister, aka the rarer of the two, and probably the better of the two, Zurich 1953 by Miguel Najdorf, who was also in this tournament. So he did a book about his own tournament, and he did a book about his own tournament, and now we have the twins together. This is so fire. One is much more used than the other. Yeah, especially on the bottom here. Look at this. But this one is in like near perfect condition and goes for a lot of money, as you'll see in the third part of this video. So that was in 1953. Now we have the 1962 Candidates Tournament, a pretty new book because it's Jan Timman who wrote this, Dutch champion. This was published maybe in 2002, but this is about the 1962 Candidates Tournament, which decided who would play against Michael Botvinnik in 1963. Spoiler, the person who won this beat him and then became World Chess Champion. Crazy, crazy tournament book. There was also known and proven Soviet collusion in this tournament that Fischer called out, and it ended up being true, which is mind-blowing historically. And then, of course, we had to buy the 1963 World Chess Championship, the best of the best. The winner from this one played in this one against Botvinnik and won. I don't want to spoil anything. I might do a series on this, but yeah, this is like so cool. It's about Michael Botvinnik and his challenger. Really, really cool 1963 tournament. And now we go to the classic and the classic. One of my most impressive books, just because of the sheer amount of diagrams in this one. It's the 1972 Fischer-Spassky Move by Move. And I'm not joking here when I say move by move. It is literally move by move diagrams. There is a diagram, 6 diagrams on each page. I'm not joking here. Look at this. What is actually going on? They describe every single move, even when it's a trade, like bishop takes pawn. The bishop takes pawn to maintain material balance. Brev. Like, they're explaining every single move of the entire match. Look at this. Over 1,800 diagrams. Brev. There's 300 pages. Do the math. 6 diagrams per page on average. On average. Damn. Crazy. And now finally we have the last tournament book, the 1979, this is a local one, but it was international, Tournament of the Stars, my only book that I bought in a language other than English. I bought this one, this is in French, Le Tournoi International des Échecs, the international chess tournament that happened in Montreal, sponsored by Montreal's biggest newspaper, La Presse. This had the legends of the legends. I mean, Tal, you have Karpov, you have Lebojevic, you have crazy, crazy players. Jan Timman, who wrote this book, right? Jan Timman was in this tournament, which is crazy. Lajos Portish, you have Boris Spassky. So many ex-world champions were in this tournament in Montreal. Perhaps the biggest tournament we have ever hosted, which is crazy. And so yeah, I bought this book. It's in French. It's an original. We wrote and published this right after the tournament. So this was published in 1979, I believe. And it's just such an incredible book. What a tournament of just absolute goats that come to the same place. Montreal doesn't host big tournaments, so that was really big for us, historically. So yeah, those were my 7 tournament books. Honestly, all great buys. I don't even regret one of them. It's just the best of the best. I think I bought all of these for maybe like $80 or $90, $100 for like 7 beautiful tournament books. In really good condition too. It's just like dreams happened that day. Dreams happened that day. I honestly really. We're gonna go for another small category, our third category of the day. Historical books / anecdotes. So little things that happened in history, all connected to chess, of course. We have for number 1, the ultimate coffee table chess book that just describes the chess world. It's called The World of Chess. Look, it just has awesome chess pictures along the way, like just that's that one here. Oh, This one here is Benjamin Franklin losing to a lady, which I didn't know he lost that game. I knew of the picture. It's just like an awesome book with so many cool pictures. Really good to look at when you're having a cup of coffee, say. Coffee table. Number 2 is perhaps the second most valuable book of the entire collection that I bought here. I bought this for $50. And I remember that because I only bought 2 books for $50 in this entire 54 book collection. This is A History of Chess. And if you know me, you know that I've been looking for this for a long time and that I've posted a really early video about 5 or 6 months back about buying this first edition. This is not a first edition, this is a third edition. I think the cheapest one goes for like $379 US, so it's like big steal for $50 Canadian, which is like $35 US. Huge steal, super beautiful book. And yeah, this was published in 1982, but originally published in 1913. H.J.R. Murray really describes the entire history of chess. This is the holy grail for history of chess. It talks from the Indians, to the Persians, to the Arabs, to the Europeans, all the eras of chess, even chess in Asia with the variants that got developed there. Crazy book, A History of Chess. Goated, absolutely goated book. Probably top 5 of my entire collection, this book. It's just, the works are, it took him like 20 years to research everything here, I think. So crazy, absolute crazy. Number 2 is an underrated one. I bought this, you know, it's worth this today, but it's super cool. The Even More Complete Chess Addict. This is purely anecdotes. It's like who played chess, you know, there's Albert Einstein on the cover, what they did, musicians, famous people, what happened, what nots. Occurrences, little stories and stuff. It's just such a cool book to have and to look up on once in a while. I have a lot of these types of books. I have Wonders and Curiosities by Chernev, which is a really cool book. I have The Genius and Misery, are also really cool books. I can go get them. I found them. These are also really cool anecdotal chess books. The Genius and Misery of Chess is about chess players who died in misery even though they were geniuses. And Wonders and Curiosities is just really out-of-the-box stories about chess. Really cool. So yeah, this book kind of reminded me of those, and so that's why I bought it. For a steal, $10. And finally, in the history section, this is by Bielka, Grandmasters in Profile. This book, the seller told me some really cool stories about this book. It's written in terrible English because it's just translated from Yugoslavian super badly. And so the mistakes are plentiful in English, but the contents are incredible. It's really just profiles on grandmasters and some really cool stories about the best players at the time. And it's in this really concise book, so it's like really easy to read. And, you know, let me just give you an example of a mistake that I saw. Chess champion, bruv. Look at this. Chess, he first became champion with an S. That's crazy. And so from a collector's point of view, that's like a very cool book to collect. And very sick, like just really cool. So that completes the history department. So we have completed about half of the entire collection that I bought here today, which is crazy. Now we're going on to the second half. So I'm gonna do games collections for my next category. There are 4 books that I bought that are kind of like game collections. Here they are. So the newest one I got is The Mammoth Book of the Greatest Chess Games Ever. Really thick book, but very small book. Look at this. Very small book. Yeah, it's just like really packed for like a game, a section. Really sick book. Games from all over in history, the 1920s, 1800s, and all the way to 2005, 7, 8, 9. So it's like really 200 years of greatest chess games ever in this fat book. Really cool. Then you have my favorite book of the collection, hands down. You have seen this if you follow me on Instagram. The Golden Treasury of Chess. And look at this golden cover, like how beautiful it is. It's just like insane. And in it, it's not clickbait. It's really not clickbait for a book. In it is just the craziest chess games that you can ever imagine. The first chess game, if you saw the YouTube short, is literally a mate in 11 that Black performed, also called the Petrov's Immortal, which is insane. And throughout the book, it's just crazy game after crazy game with crazy pictures. And this is the craziest part, speaking of crazy, I have found newspaper articles from within this book. Look at this. I have found really, really old newspaper articles about chess. I couldn't decipher the year, but look at this. Moves made in chess matches yesterday. This is how chess was spread out. It was in the newspaper the next day. You had to wait if you didn't see the game live. And yeah, Lilienthal, Nimzovich is so cool. On the flip side of it, you have Major League Baseball. So I guess this was an American newspaper, which is so cool. Let me see here. Yeah, 1945. So cool. So cool. So like 67-year-old newspaper? That's so sick. And let's see what else we got here. We got a ton. Look at this. We got so many. Let me show you all of them. Moves made in international chess. Look at this. Moves made in international chess. It's just like plenty of moves. So sick. Board 2, board 1. Board 1, Queen's Gambit declined. Board 2, Queen's Gambit declined. Board 7, Nimzovich defense. Crazy. This is how they would, spread out tournament news of the last games. We have more here. I don't want to break anything. So you have Chess Solitaire here. You can kind of medium see. What to do after the opening. Oh, shit. So anyways, this is my favorite book of the collection. It's just the best games collection, and it's all old. It's all golden, basically. Beauty. Okay. Here we have a 2-part book, and it's the last books of games collection around the chess world 80 years. Crazy. Crazy. And these ones have the nicest chess pictures I've ever seen. These are all original chess pictures, of course. And they're not on the internet, which is absolutely mad. Look at this, bruv. It's protected by a little paper here. Just sick. But this is Capablanca, if you have a good eye. Our 3rd world chess champion. It's like, come on. Rubinstein, also crazy. Look at that. Look at that picture. Original pic with a signature on it. Bless. Look at this. Young Mikhail Botvinnik. Crazy. So sick. And then the volume 2 I don't think has pictures. But is just as cool. It's just games between the best players of the time. So you see in volume 1 is Lasker Pillsbury, Lasker Rubinstein, Lasker Capablanca. In volume 2 it's I think it's just continuous world championships. Yeah. Capablanca Alyekin, Rubinstein, Alyekin Botvinnik, etc., etc. Really cool old books. I think these are from the 1940s from British Chess Magazine. Really, really nice. And so yeah, that sums up games collections. Next category, and second to last category, is books about players. So these players did not write their own books. It's more like a less good player who wrote about them but still made like fabulous works, right? And some of these are made actually by famous players about other players, which is really cool. So in this category we have 11 chess books, which is a lot. And let's get to it. So our second to last category, books about players. This is it. Also, all fire books, you'll see. Okay, let's start with this cute one. Morphy's Games of Chess. This is the only Morphy book of chess games that he collaborated on, which is crazy. It's by Lilienthal. This was originally published in 1860. This is a reprint, though, by Batsford in 1985. Look at this crazy cover. I mean, it's just the prettiest cover I've ever seen. It's all golden. All on the sides. I think it's Anderson's Immortal. It's just a crazy book. It's the only chess book Morphy collaborated on that was about his games, which is just best thing ever. So Morphy's Games of Chess. Goated, absolutely goated. You have to buy a Morphe book. You have to, right? Next one is also a banger, you know, only bangers here. The Magic Tactics of Michael Tal. This is not by Michael Tal, of course, but it's just a really, really rare and beautiful book about his tactics. Also, you gotta buy a Tal book if you're buying chess books. So there you go. Then you have Vasily Ivanchuk's 100 Best Games. I mean, fire, fire, fire. I just love Ivanchuk. Ivanchuk is one of those people, just like Michal Tal, if you haven't guessed so far, I'm an attacking player that just attacks like crazy. So these two books will be perfect to combine with this book about attacking chess players. Just all around, huge buys, so worth it. And now the next ones, I don't have a large collection of Capablanca books. I have Irving Chernev's book about Capablanca's best chess endings. But here we bought two, and they're two of my oldest chess books that I bought. Here's the 1948, I believe, Capablanca's 100 Best Chess Games. Really, really cool book. Again, by Harry Golombek, my favorite of the favorite, of course. This is translated, I guess, or it's a first edition. It's like legit crazy. This one is very rare. You'll see its pricing after. It's just like crazy over the moon rare. Then you have The Immortal Games of Capablanca, another rare book by Fred Reinfeld. For those of you who don't know Fred Reinfeld, he is the most published author of all time with about 125 to 132 chess books only written by him, which is crazy. So this is also a rare book you'll see in the end. Just like Capablanca, you have to buy a book about Capablanca. Third world chess champion, GOAT of the GOAT, greatest of all time, for real, for real. This is a book I already have, one of the few duplicates I have. As you know, A History of Chess is a duplicate of mine. This is another duplicate. Super NES, a very rare book that goes for around 100 US right now. And it used to go for $250, but there's a new book on Super NES going out soon, which is why this value has decreased, though I bought it for 10 Canadian dollars, which is like $750 US, which is like a steal. So you had to get this in duplicate. This is one of the few I might resell. So yeah, there you go. Now, for my Mexicans out there, love y'all. Carlos Torre, the absolute biggest legend of Mexico, the best chess product coming out of Mexico for fact. Carlos Torre, repeto, is a Mexico legend. He was amongst the top 15 of the world. He went, I think, crazy, but in his prime, he was an undoubtable crazy chess player who did just moves that we talk about even today. Like, just like crazy moves that I show on my Instagram page all the time. Like, this is a crazy chess player. Really, really nice book. Really recent book here. And it's just like a compilation of his life and games. Really sick book, Carlos Torre, repeto. This is a cool one. This is Bobby Fischer and his predecessors by a famous author. 5th world chess champion Max Uwe, or Uwe. Dutch people correct me in the comments. This is a spectacular cover, but an even better book in my opinion. You know, of course, Garry Kasparov has a more famous predecessor's book, but this was published before, and this is really cool. It's about Fischer and Tal, Fischer and Lasker, Fischer and Capablanca, how Fischer has imitated the people before him to become the greatest player of all time, perhaps. Boom, another beauty. Underrated book, very, very underrated book. This is actually recently published, which recently I mean in the last 24 years, but for this collection, that's pretty recent. Schlechter's Games of Chess. Do you know who Schlechter is? Carl Schlechter was somebody in the 1910s that often came out with brilliancy prizes for like really cool games, and it's just crazy that they made a book about his, and they just compiled a ton of his games and they put it in a beautiful hardcover book. And yeah, super, super swell purchase. Love to have that in my collection. Carl Schlechter, really underrated chess player in history. And finally, for the 10 and 11 books, we have the duel, the set. If you know me, you know this is my favorite chess player of all time. The Games of Tigran Petrosian, Part 1 and then Part 2, selected by years. I mean, they're just perfect. They're absolutely perfect. They're annotated. They're beautiful. A lot of diagrams, a lot of explanation behind the moves. It's beautiful. Tigran Petrosian also was in Zurich 1953. I think I bought books on like 10 of the 15 players in Zurich 53. Like crazy things, which is absolutely nuts. So yeah, Tigran Petrosyan, my favorite chess player of all time. You had to get two thick books about his. And so there you go, completing the books about players. And finally, chess books for improvement. We have 13 books in this final category. So many cool books. Most of them are recent in this one, but in this category, I have the rarest book of my collection, and by coincidence, the third thinnest book of my collection is the most rare and the most expensive and the most worthy, which is just like crazy to think about. Anyways, yeah, I'm super excited. So I've broken down these self-improvement books into 4 categories. Number 1 is positional and strategical chess. Number 2 is attacking and everything around that. Number 3 is just overall chess amelioration. And number 4 is chess endgames. Let's start with strategical and positional. These are really cool books, once again, that I just got for a legit steal. Dynamic Chess Strategy. This is like a really advanced book onto how to play strategically, but like dynamic chess. This one by Joel Benjamin, who was like 5-time US champion. Liquidation on the Board. Really cool book about what trades to do and how to liquidate a winning position, right? Into a winning position. And the third is by Danya. Daniel Naroditsky did make a book when he was like 16. He published this one, Mastering Positional Chess. And this one is quite rare nowadays. So Positional Chess, it's a very tough book, the seller told me. So I took it immediately, and you know, it's to ameliorate the positional things, which I'm super bad at. Told to me by a grandmaster actually that I'm bad at positional chess things. So that's crazy. Next we're gonna do endings. Endgames, I got some classics. Van Perlo's Endgame Tactics. Really, really cool. It just goes by endgame, and there's like 1,001 of these. It's crazy. Super, super nice book. Really, really thick. I have loads of endgames for the rest of my life in here. Amazing. This is a book by a famous chess player. Perhaps, double check me on this, perhaps the person who has done the most candidate tournaments ever in history of chess, Lajos Portish from Hungary. Here you go, 600 endgames from him. It was a collab book, originally published in Hungarian, and this is the translated version in English, 600 endings. Really cool book, once again. And another one by a famous author, Rook Endings by Vasily Smyslov, who was once again in the Zurich International Chess Tournament. This is my favorite era of chess. Anybody who has made a book from that tournament, I bought the book of. So this is the third endgame book. And now we're gonna go into the attacking. If you know me, if you've seen my chess, this is the real stuff. First we have Jacob Agad's Attacking Manual. I wanted to get sponsored for this one. Not gonna lie, super, super good book apparently. This is just like a classic in attacking chess nowadays. It's also pretty rare, and so I love this book. I've already looked a little bit into it. I even made a YouTube short from this book. Really, really cool attacking knowledge. Bring all your toys to the nursery. If you know, you know. I have 2 books by the same author here. The Art of the Sacrifice here is really cool. It's a really old book, I think from the 1960s. It's how to sacrifice in chess and when to look for the sacrifice. Really cool. It gives you a lot of patterns to look for in chess sacrifices, which is also really cool. And the same author did another attacking book, now a classic, The Art of Attack in Chess. This is a classic even today with the red cover, you might recognize it. Super good book by Vladimir Vukovic, who has done these 2 books. This is a green cover, but it doesn't, you have to put it under a certain light. It's really crazy. Look, it's green. It's a green cover. It's so crazy. So anyways, crazy book. This is the 1st or 2nd edition. Now the one that's for sale is like a 3rd or 4th edition, really, really far away. And finally, a tactics book. Why not? 2, 3, 4, 5 chess problems, Anthology of Chess Problems by Chess Informant. These are the guys who do the Chess Informants, that are a very known series of chess books that recap every year or every half a year now of the best chess games, the best combinations, the best things that happened in chess. And so that is all for my attacking series. Now for the overall improvement. I have my most rare book of all time that I'm gonna show last. And here we're gonna start with 3 Steps to Chess Mastery by Suetin, who was a world-class player. He talks about all the ways that a player can ameliorate their thinking, how they go through tactics, how they go through everything in chess, also in the psychology. So this is an all-around book that I'm going to look at very closely because this was a really good chess player giving some great knowledge. This is a very fire book. I can't believe I got it for 10 bucks. The World Champions Teach Chess. Basically, the concept of this book is every world champion had a chapter in this book, and they all did their best for their own chapter on a specific topic to be actually awesome. And so you just have Mikhail Botvinnik's chapter, you have Vasily Smyslov's chapter, you have Tigran Petrosian's chapter, Boris Spassky's chapter. They all hustled their chapter to be liked more, right? So it's like a competitive book within itself. Super cool for chess improvement. I'm very excited what Grandmaster talks about what. This might be video content, to be fair. Super cool book. And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, the book that cannot be found online. If you look it up, it cannot be found. It is super rare. Basically, Bent Larsen, who I told you is rare for making books in English, did a 4 chess school part book in Danish, published in Danish, 4 parts, colorful, very nice. They weren't published into English until he made it all condensed into one beautiful, beautiful book. This is the rarest book I own, Good Move Guide. The last time this went for bid, it went to $225, and look how thin this book is. Published in 1982, it is already out of print, and the rarest chess book I own by Bent Larsen. What a goat, what a chess book. It's about good moves by Bent Larsen. It's a very simple concept. This is so rare. You can go in the chess book collectors group and you can like say, hey, I have this book. People will bid on it for you. They'll give you prices to buy it from you. It's like just nuts. This is the second to only book I bought for 50 bucks Canadian, so like 35 US. It doesn't exist on the market. It just doesn't exist. It's the rarest book, maybe of all time in chess, that is post 1950. So really, really cool book. So yeah, that is my entire collection. Now for the prices. I hope you enjoy all the prices. They're just gonna accumulate. It's gonna be so fun to go over these and what they're all worth. But yes, some books I cannot assign value. This one I cannot assign value. And this one I cannot assign value, cannot find it online. So these are 2 books I can't find online. I can't find what they're worth. It's crazy, right? So yeah. So when I say a lot of these books, I was very surprised at how they were valued, both in the great surprise, like they were really highly valued, and others in a very bad surprise that I was like, what? I would think that book goes for like 50 bucks. So let's go over them. Let's go over them by section. So we have our first section, which is autobiographies that we just saw. Okay, so the first book we have is the Botvinnik My Selected Games. This one goes, you'll see on your screen, for $24.68. Was the last time I saw it up for buy on AbeBooks, right? And so we go next. So I was tremendously surprised for this Alyokin book. This, although published in 1948 by himself, is only worth $20, right? And its counterpart, the second book, this is a reprint from 1973, only worth $14. I think because it was reprinted so often, that is why these books go for essentially not a lot of money. Now for Savieli Tartakover's 1905 to 1954, this one went for $24.97, so add that to the tally. I think I'll have like a little tally down here, which is cool. Is Marshall's Best Games. This is a huge surprise. I thought this book would be worth, you know, 50 bucks, 100 bucks. It looks old. It's a reprint by Dover. It's like 1960s, I believe. And it goes for $10 on eBay. So if you want this, it's a very fire book. If you're a big fan of Frank Marshall's, it goes for not a lot of money. It's an autobiography about one of the most attacking players in the 20th century. So really, really fire. Then we have Victor Koshnoy's Best Games. This one went for about $25. We'll add that to the tally. Again, really, really good book. I think this is fairly priced, actually. Next, we go for Vasily Smyslov, My Best Games. This is a hardcover and a dust jacket, so that adds to the value. This one was only $9. I mean, dirt cheap. I would really recommend you buy this if you're kind of a positional slash strategical chess player. Next up, we have Michael Tal Life in Games by Michael Tal, first edition in English. This one went for 30 bucks, kind of around the same as the recent copy that is not out of print. It's still going for, this one is out of print, but the most recent one published is not out of print still. So it goes around for the same amount of money, so that's fairly priced. Then we have Taimanov Selected Games by Mark Taimanov. I think the reason why this went for 10 bucks only is because he didn't become world champion, and this book, you know, even though it's out of print, it's not worth that much because the player is not that much of a legacy, even though he is completely for me. So next, this one is a personal favorite. I was quite surprised. It actually goes for like 40 bucks with the dust jacket and the hardcover. And yeah, it's a really nice book, $40, 200 Open Games by David Bronstein. Bronstein, one of the best chess players to never be a world champion. And this hardcover was also a surprise, but I guess it goes the same way as Mark Taimanov. You probably never heard of these two players until now, which is okay. But for me, again, this is just like a personal favorite, and this book goes for like 18 bucks, even though it's a really solid hardcover and super quality book. Next is Svetozar Grigorich, I Play Against Pieces. Goes for 40 bucks, pretty rare. It's really sorted by opening. It tells a lot about the player's style and what he prefers, which is really cool. Went for 40 bucks, added to the tally. Bent Larsen was difficult, this one. So it actually went for $17, but the condition looked really iffy. One with a better condition went for $45, so I would price this at around 30 bucks, I think. Now, this is the autobiography that is worth the most money. It's Anatoly Karpov's My Best Games, the Olms edition. Why? Because it's out of print, even though it's a 2008 book, so it's really recent, it's engine checked. It's really good quality, it's super collectible, and it goes for $175 to my surprise. What a worthy book. I'm never gonna sell this. Are you crazy? So yeah, really cool book. And finally, The Middle Years by Paul Kierez, who was edited and translated by Harry Golombek, so I still put it in autobiographies because it was written by Paul Kierez. Goes for a mere $14, fair, I guess. It's hardcover and dust jacket, but you know, it is what it is. I really love this book. Now for the history section, we have 4 books in this one. The most expensive one by far is A History of Chess by H.J.R. Murray. This one, a first edition of this one, it goes for $371, the cheapest one I see. But this is a third edition, 1982. Goes for around, I would say, since there are no copies online, I would say $300 or $250. Really priced fairly. So that I might sell because it's a duplicate. This one, the even more complete Chess Addict, basically Anecdotes, goes for a mere 9 bucks. I would suggest for you to pick it up if you're into anecdotes and fun things about the chess world. This one, Grandmasters in Profile, goes for quite a lot. I was kind of surprised, $31. Yeah, it's just it's a really cool book with a lot of Grandmasters in Profile. Really speaks for itself. Known for bad English, really cool historical phenomenon there, and so $31. And this one was like insultingly, I don't know, very cheap. Goes for $7.20, which is a steal if you can get it. Yeah, just a hardcover, very cool pictures, very quality. Look at this. Look at this. Any page, there's a really cool picture. Super cool book, goes for 7 bucks. Next category is books about players. Here we go. Capablanca's 100 Best Chess Games, although this is published in 1947 and is a first edition and is hardcover and is dust jacket, only goes for $19.11. An absolute steal. Get this if you can. Which I was very surprised about, of course, because just the old date, really fire book, super good condition, goes for so much money. However, this one, The Immortal Games of Capablanca by Fred Reinfeld, although it just published 5 years earlier, goes for $300 on 8 books. So now that I mentioned it, I went on eBay and it says 60 for a really bad copy, so I'll put this at 100 bucks. I think that's fair for a very fair condition copy. Next is the Tal one. This tall book, how much would you think this is worth? This is actually worth $126 on the market currently. Really, really good for the value. I think I bought this for like 15 bucks. So really, really sick book. Next up is The Life and Games of Carlos Torre Repeto, kind of a niche book. Goes for 40 bucks, out of print, even though it's a 2015 release, sorry about that. Yeah, just like 40 bucks, really, really good. The next one is one of the only other ones that I knew the value of. The only other book that I knew the value of while in the person's private library was A History of Chess. Super NES goes for around 100 bucks, $109 to be exact. Super, super good. I bought it for 10 Canadian, so like $7.95 US. Totally good deal. Next up is one of my personal favorites, Morphy's Games of Chess. Goes for just an absolute steal, $22.28. The best book of Morphy games, in my opinion, from what I've seen. I have 3 Morphy books. This is the best one. Super, super good quality. This is actually more recently published than the book allows you to think. This is published in 1998, so like just 24 years ago. Goes for 28 bucks. So if you really, really like Carl Schlechter, fire book. So the next is a 2-set pack, as I should say. So this one is a first edition and hardcover and dust jacket, as you can see the reflection there. Goes for like 85 bucks, so that's a really good value for the 15 bucks I paid for it. Though that first volume, Petrosian, does have no dust jacket, the one that's inscripted, so I would value mine at about $100 USD. And this volume 2 goes for $38, though this condition is not too good since there are some stains on the book. And it does smell a little bit, so nothing too bad, but definitely keeping territory. But maybe it goes for like 25 bucks. I put it at 38 though. And finally, for this Ivanchuk book, goes for $38 US, but there's only 2 in English on the market, which is crazy. I'm smelling that this is a rare book, not gonna lie. Next up is Bobby Fischer and His Predecessors by Max Uwe. This goes for 38 bucks, kind of the same as that Ivanchuk one. So there you go. That's books about players. And now for tournament books, we're going to go in order by year. So this 1909 reprint by Dover goes for a mere $12. I thought this was going to be one of my most expensive books, but no, apparently not. But we have some huge wins. Here, this 1948 World Chess Championship by Harry Golombek goes for $20. I think it was published in 1949, a year later. So very fire book. Now. You remember I told you this book is mass printed and is considered a less good version of the 2? Well, this one goes for about 30 bucks and I think is still in print even on Amazon today. This one is out of print. Okay, and this is the one I bought when I visited the library. This goes for $163 US, is the cheapest I could find on the internet. What a beautiful book to buy. I think it cost me like 20 bucks, so absolute beauty. Next is Botvinnik versus Petrosian World Chess Championship 1963. Goes for $25 only. This is a fairly old book, 1964. I was surprised by these older books' price, but it is what it is. This is a beauty. This Curaçao 1962, published in 2005 by Jan Timman, very, very good Dutch player and legend. Goes for 90 US, out of print by New Chess. So absolute beauty. What a buy. This is weird. So this Fischer-Spassky move by move, the one with 1800 diagrams, you remember that one? I think a really bad copy of this goes for $5, but I'm not sure if you'll see on screen. I'm not sure if this is a good quality copy that's going for $5. So, there's a high value copy that's going for $49, the next most expensive one. It's out of print, so I don't know what to think. But yeah, that's that. Next we have the 1979 International Tournament of the Stars, played in Montreal. I cannot find this one's value on the internet. It does not exist. It's a super rare book, I believe. I don't know how much it's worth. I just put question marks all over it. So we're done with the tournament books. Let's go over the games collection books. Here we're going to start with my favorite book of this collection, The Golden Treasury of Chess. Fire. Only goes for $20. If you want to pick it up, I think it's available. 1943, this is the original, and it's super cool cover. Super nice book to have. $21. The Mammoth. This one is quite cheap. I'm not gonna lie to you. Goes for $4.93. Probably my most worthless book of the collection. But doesn't mean that the games in here are worthless. Fire games in here. I just bought this for the pure pleasure of chess. And of course, now we have the two series. Around the Chess World Volume 1 and Around the World of Chess Volume 2. Let's go for really cheap. I was super surprised once again. I bought these for a lot of money. I bought both of these for 30 bucks Canadian. So like $22 US. And now they go for like 10 bucks combined US. I come to realize it's okay. I love these books. The pictures in them are crazy good. And yeah, super happy to still have them. And now we're on to the final category, the self-improvement chess books. Here we go, let's start. Dynamic Chess Strategy. So now we're in kind of the overall section of books that helps me get better. This one goes for $25.92, which is expensive for a chess book. It's a lot of money, US dollars, right? Next we have Liquidation on the Chessboard. Goes for dirt cheap, if you ask me. $8.66 for this beautiful book. Bro, go get it if you need to liquidate better. Mastering Positional Chess. This is a super rare book by Danya. Goes for $80 USD. I think it's out of print. Craziness. One of the rarer books that I was the most surprised that was worth a lot of money. Editing Zach here 2 weeks later. That book now is sold, and the cheapest one I could find was on Amazon. Goes for $279. So let's fix that price right there. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. This video took like a month to edit. Crazy. And you have 3 Steps to Chess Mastery. This is a personal favorite because it only goes for $4.63. But I love this book. I'm in love with it. I really want to start it. So yeah, this one was one of my most surprised from books. Crazy surprised. Every world champion wrote a section on this book. It goes for $9.84. Like how? Anyways, one of the best values for your money here. Super crazy. And finally, in this section, right, another book we cannot assess value, Bent Larson's Good Move Guide. It doesn't exist on the internet. You cannot get it even if you want it. Bent Larson's writings are highly sought after. And there's tremendous high demand for this book and 1982 release. I priced it fairly at 400 bucks, but I'm not even sure I included it in my final prices. Crazy book by Bent Larson. Does not exist. Just super rare. Let's go on to Endgames, a category I really need to work on. Van Perlo's Endgame Tactics. Goes for 22 bucks. Out of print, I believe. Really good value for what you get. Look at this. A ton of tactics. Over 1,000 chess tactics in the endgame. Super fire. Next we have Rook Endings by Vasily Smyslov. I think 6th world chess champion. He was a world champion, also known as the Winter King. $32, which I'm surprised. It's kind of a little book, and it goes for a lot of money. So, you know, out of print Batsford, you love to see it. And finally, in Endgames, 600 Endings, again by a famous author. Lajos Portish was in like 7 candidates tournaments for like 20 years ruling Hungarian chess. This one goes for $44. Originally printed in Hungarian. The English version is 44 bucks. And now for attacking one of my favorite categories, of course. Anthology of Chess Problem goes for $129. Dust jacket, as you can see the reflection, and hardcover. Very expensive. I'm not sure if it's worth it at that price, but it's a very rare book, so it's worth a lot of money. This is kind of a combo. The Art of Attack in Chess goes for $15 by Vukovic, and his other, The Chess Sacrifice, goes for $22.81 USD. Beautiful. And finally, this one is getting all bought up. I thought I had an answer, a price tag, but it looks like it's $45 for the expanded edition. Editing Zach, back at you again. I couldn't find this copy 2 weeks later again. I could only find the 2nd edition of this book that went for a ridiculous amount. I'm gonna put it on screen, almost $600. So I'm just not gonna include it in the total worth because I think it's kind of fugazi, like it's so rare that it doesn't exist. I can't find the original edition, so I'm just gonna put question marks around it. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. Here are finally my top 5 books out of the 54 books that I bought. Here we go. Curaçao 1962. I think this is one of the greatest tournaments of all time. So excited to review these games. Next is The World Champions Teach Chess. This is just an amazing book. How often do you see world chess champions each writing a chapter in a chess book? Just unheard of. Next is a little personal favorite of mine. You guys know, The Golden Treasury of Chess. Just an awesome cover. The games collection in here is unmatched, 100%. The rarest book of my collection is naturally my favorite, Good Move Guide. Slim but rare, as can be. And finally, Zurich 1953 for the personal touch, as this literally started my career as the chess nerd. If you can guess which 3 books of this collection I have started to read already, I will give you $100 via PayPal. Only one guess each in the comments, not all at once. Thank you so much for watching The Chess Nerd. See you next time. That is the final amount of all my chess books. I spent overall about $835 Canadian, which in USD I think is like 700. It's a lot of money to spend in one weekend, but it was definitely worth it. I am so enthusiastic about my books. I hope you enjoyed this video, and sending you guys all love. As always, see you next time. Thank you so much for watching The Chess Nerd. Finally, here are some last minute stats that I made for you about the 54 books that I bought. So the average book that I bought cost $11.93 USD. And the average worth of every single book was $42.58 USD. So I made a bag, and I could count 2 ultra rare books in the collection.